My wife, Grace, finally became the heir to the Sterling dynasty. And just like that, I was met with endless contempt. All because I wasn't the heir to my own family's fortune. So I endured the humiliation. I played the part of the faithful, pathetic husband. By the time I finished swallowing Sterling corp whole, Grace finally learned what fear was. She got on her knees and begged me to spare her. I just smiled. The ocean is beautiful, a perfect place for a family to find some peace. Goodbye, my dear wife. I was at a bar, flirting with my latest sugar baby, when someone crashed the party. A young man with a dark expression stormed up, accusing me of being a degenerate for breaking up him and his girlfriend. I gave my girl a confused look. I thought you were single. She looked just as annoyed, then slapped the guy across the face. Get lost, you psycho. It turned out the girlfriend he was talking about wasn't my girl. It was my wife. This whole mess was getting on my nerves. I looked down at my wrinkled suit jacket, genuinely irritated. What the hell was I paying my security for? If my girl hadn't slapped him a few times, he might have actually ruined the fabric. She was now frantically trying to smooth out my clothes, but I held up a hand to stop her. I slowly lifted my head, my gaze turning ice cold as I focused on the intruder. The boy toy was handsome, I'll give him that. His face was a mask of fury, dressed in a clean, crisp shirt and jeans. He had that fresh out of college look. You're a scumbag, he seethed. You string Grace along while you're messing around with this woman. You're a total piece of trash. His eyes burned with rage. If my bodyguards hadn't shown up when they did, he probably would have tried to take a swing at me. I leaned back, getting comfortable on the sofa. So, this was about Grace. I took a sip of my drink and spoke calmly. Grace Sterling, what's your relationship with her? The young man took a step forward, but stopped short, clearly intimidated by the security detail. A sneer still played on his lips. I'm her boyfriend. I've already proposed. So I want you, the third wheel, to get out of the picture. Don't think you can do whatever you want just because you have some dirty money. He kept ranting, something about how Grace would never love me and how homewreckers never get a happy ending. His monologue was ruining my buzz. I waved a hand at my bodyguards. I don't like the way he's talking down to me. My security team was on edge. They'd already screwed up by letting this guy get close enough to wrinkle my suit. Now, they had a chance to make up for it. They didn't hesitate. A swift kick sent the kid to his knees, and they held him there, firmly. Without another word from me, he'd be spending the rest of the night on the floor. I smirked, stood up, and walked over to him. What are you doing? He stammered. I just patted his shoulder. Don't be scared. Let's talk. How did you know who I was? He looked humiliated but defiant. I saw you. I saw you and her holding hands, going into a restaurant. He spat the words out. I've seen plenty of scumbags like you. You think your money lets you mess with any girl you want, even if she has a boyfriend. We were about to get married. It's all your fault. You're going to get what's coming to you. He sounded so self-righteous, as if lightning was about to strike me down. I pieced it together. It must have been from a week ago. A family gathering for our two companies. We had to put on a show, act like the perfect, loving couple. That must have been when he saw us. I almost laughed. Was this kid dropped on his head, or just born stupid? Once I composed myself, I sat back down on the sofa and ate a piece of fruit my girl fed me. Oh, so you two were about to get married? And I'm the one who broke you up? I suggest you stay on your knees and think about this. Do you really know Grace Sterling? Because as far as I know, she doesn't have a fiancé. Seeing him about to argue, I just held up my hand. She's married. Has been for 3 years. I decided to educate him, my voice dripping with condescension. I've seen plenty of pathetic guys like you. You use your pretty face to hook a rich woman, not caring if she's married or not. Let me tell you, a lot of those rich women are into some twisted stuff. Whips, candles, that sort of thing. They'll use their cigars to burn you. Be careful you don't get yourself hurt. The kid couldn't process it. After all, he had come here with the righteous fury of a man catching his girl's other lover. I had my assistant toss a stack of cash on the floor in front of him. Thanks for taking care of my wife. My apologies, she has a wandering eye. So many dogs around her, I can't keep track. But don't worry, I'll tell her to make sure you all have enough kibble next time. Just remember to keep your leash on. I waved my hand dismissively, and my bodyguards, taking the hint, dragged him to another corner of the room to continue his kneeling. Around midnight, the door to my penthouse opened. I had just finished a workout with my girl and was relaxing. I watched, puzzled, as Grace Sterling walked in. Since she became the Sterling heir a year ago, we'd barely spent a night under the same roof. We both had keys to each other's places, but that was only for keeping up appearances. Grace looked at me, her face a dark cloud. "Alex, we need to talk." I clicked my tongue. What a buzzkill. I was just about to go for another round. "Your boy toy?" I asked. She flinched, then sighed and walked over to me. "I'm sorry. I didn't know Ethan Cole would come find you." I poured myself a glass of red wine and poured one for her too. Whatever else we were, we could at least share a drink. "Leash your dog," I said coldly. "Next time, you can look for him in a block of cement at the bottom of the Hudson." Grace was silent. We locked eyes for a few seconds before she looked away. "Fine. But you need to remember your place, too. You're nobody right now. Don't make this ugly." She stood to leave, then turned back. Under the soft light, Grace's face was undeniably beautiful. I had just never loved her. "Alex," she said softly, "don't touch him, or we get a divorce. Don't forget, you're just the Carter family's reject. This won't do you any good." I couldn't help but scoff. What is this one true love? She looked at me, her tone softening for once. "No, but you know we don't have feelings for each other. The way things are now is fine. Don't worry, I won't let him bother you again." I laughed coldly. Grace Sterling, capable of being gentle. Miracles never cease. Not that I cared. "Good. Remember what you said. Keep him away from me." Then came the time of the month. I had to endure the Sterling family. It was always an ordeal, forcing myself to play the loving husband with Grace, just to go our separate ways and back to our separate pets once the curtain fell. This week, we had to go to the Sterlings again. During dinner, her mother looked at Grace with a wide smile. "Grace, dear, you two have been married for 3 years. Isn't it time to think about having a child?" I didn't say anything. What was I supposed to say? It wasn't the first time her parents had brought it up. For the past year, we had lived separate lives, but we kept up appearances. Her family knew the real situation, of course. This was just their way of saying the Sterling family needed a future heir. As long as the child was Grace's, it didn't matter if it was mine. I was speechless. But then Grace, with a shy look, spoke up. "Mom, we're already pregnant. We came today to tell you. You don't have to worry." When Grace's parents turned to me, I had no choice but to smile and nod. Inside, though, a storm was brewing. We had no feelings for each other. We practically despised one another. The deal was we could do what we wanted, but bringing an illegitimate child into the picture and making it public was crossing a line. What was this? Was I supposed to be the happy father? I barely made it through the rest of the meal. As soon as it was over, I stood up to leave. My expression must have been grim because Grace's parents, despite knowing why, put on a concerned act. "Alex, is something wrong? You could talk to us." I forced a smile and said nothing. Grace, however, maintained her faint, mocking smile, completely unfazed. "It's nothing, Mom. Alex is just worried about my health." Her mother gave a weak laugh and patted my hand. "Alex, Grace has been spoiled by us since she was little. If you have any grievances, you must tell us." I nodded. "Don't worry, Mom. I have something urgent at the office, so I have to go." Before they could say anything else, I grabbed my coat and left. I didn't care what happened next. I spent the entire night in my study, waiting for an explanation from Grace. But she never called, not even a text. It was clear she didn't give a damn about me. Fine. In that case, I'd send her happy little family of 3, no, 5, on a permanent vacation. There's plenty of room down below. They could all go together, keep each other company. I must have fallen asleep at some point. When I woke up, I felt stiff and my mood was foul. After some thought, I decided to take the day off. Go fishing, get away from people, enjoy the peace and quiet. The revenge wasn't complete, the shame not yet erased. I like to be alone when I planned, without interruptions. Besides, when someone shoves something in your face, you can't be expected to just take it. I was sitting by the river, enjoying the attentive service of my sugar baby. I had the best gear money could buy. When you have money, you should enjoy it. But before I could even get a bite, Ethan Cole showed up again. He didn't even make it close before my bodyguards had him pinned to the ground. Good. These guys learned their lesson. The pay cut from the other day was effective. Didn't your sugar mama tell you to stay away from me? I sneered at him. Honestly, in my eyes, this kind of reckless attempt to climb the social ladder was just stupid. Why not just enjoy the ride, take the money, and get out when it's over? The world of the elite isn't easy to navigate. The backstabbing and power plays are endless, and the methods are brutal. But Ethan acted completely oblivious. He wasn't struggling this time, just looking at me with a smug expression. Grace is pregnant. You know that? I smiled. I know. A bastard child. And who knows who the father is? I'll have her get rid of it in a few days. It won't interrupt your sweet time together. Just make sure you take good care of her afterward. It was pathetic how easily he broke. A few simple words, and he was raging. Was my tongue that sharp, or was his skin just that thin? You wouldn't dare. That's my child with Grace. I watched him, my face a mask of amusement. I was just messing with him, of course. I'd had my assistant investigate last night. For the past 6 months, Grace had only been with this one man. Oh, so it's still a bastard, I said. Ethan snorted. Do you have any idea how much Grace loves me? We've been together this whole time. Has she ever even come home to you? She told me the sight of you makes her sick. This baby is the ultimate proof. Grace said she's definitely having this baby. Besides, what right do you have? You're just a kept man, living off her. I shrugged nonchalantly. Was he trying to tell me a love story? I couldn't help but mock him. Didn't you hate being the other man? Now that you know you are one, why so proud? Maybe she does love you. So what? As long as I don't want it to happen, you two have no future. That includes the bastard. My taunts didn't seem to faze Ethan. He seemed incredibly confident. Alex Carter, don't think you're so great just because you have money. Grace doesn't love you. She hates you. Your marriage was just a business deal. You're no better than a trophy husband. What right do you have to choose? If you know what's good for you, you'll divorce her. Otherwise, you'll be raising my child. I lit a cigarette and watched his stupid face through the thin veil of smoke. He was adorably naive, thinking that latching on a Grace Sterling meant he had it made. 3 years of marriage, and I was long sick of the Sterling family. 3 years was also more than enough time for me to set my plans in motion. Raise your child? You think you're worthy? I said. Ethan, if I were you, I'd get on my knees right now and bow 100 times just to make sure you can still enjoy a good meal for the rest of your life. In Grace's eyes, the only thing that makes you better than a dog is that you can speak. Ethan was furious. Young people always seem to think the law makes everyone equal. Alex Carter, don't be so arrogant. You can't just do whatever you want in New York City. He was already losing his cool. This was no fun. I lost interest in toying with him. I ignored him and gave a quiet order to my bodyguard. Last time, he didn't kneel long enough to learn his lesson. Make him kneel until tomorrow morning. If he moves, slap him. My security team was always efficient. Despite Ethan's shouting and struggling, they delivered a few dozen hard slaps to his face, swelling his mouth shut. He finally remembered we were in a secluded spot. Screaming wouldn't summon the police out here. Grace and I had known each other since we were kids. Our families weren't close, just acquainted. 3 years ago, both our companies were eyeing a major project that neither could handle alone. We needed to team up, so we got married. In the beginning, things were actually peaceful. Neither of us dared to risk the partnership between our families. The losses would have been catastrophic. For 2 whole years, despite our ambitions, we knew they were out of reach. I had a ruthless older brother above me, and she had a brilliant, calculating older brother above her. Everything changed a year ago. Grace's brother was in a car accident. His wife and child died instantly, and he was left in a vegetative state. Sterling Corp suddenly lost its best heir. Old man Sterling was forced out of retirement and began grooming Grace. Hit by this golden opportunity, Grace was no longer the sacrificial lamb in a corporate marriage. She transformed into the sole, sought-after heir of Sterling Corp in New York City. After that, our relationship became delicate. In her eyes, I, the second son of the Carter family with no inheritance rights, was probably only useful for my connection to Carter Industries. And, of course, the handsome young assistants by her side started changing one after another. I said nothing. I became the laughingstock, the cuckold. I knew I wasn't strong enough. Anything I said or did would be wrong. In this world, truth is always held by the one with the biggest fist. Perhaps because the Sterlings still needed the Carter support, Grace came to me with a proposal. Alex, our positions have changed, but you'll always be my husband. If you feel it's unfair, you can have some fun on the side too. Just don't cause any scandals. I nodded and I kept my word. For a year, we had a sort of peace. Her assistants came and went, and I kept a string of sugar babies. In public, we were the loving couple. In private, we never even spent the night in the same building. Gradually, Grace's attitude towards me became nothing more than a public performance. But I never expected her to let her dog break the rules of the game, not only allowing him to parade in front of me, but also planning to make me a father. If that's how it was going to be, then my 3 years of preparation were not in vain. I didn't know how Grace would react, but my fishing trip was ruined. I turned, took my girl's hand, and got into the car. Looking at the Starlight headliner and the beautiful woman beside me, my back ached a little. I felt annoyed and awkwardly rubbed my nose. I'd been tutoring her a bit too frequently lately. Driving back from the river, I looked at the clouds and found myself thinking about 3 years ago. I had just returned from my studies abroad when my family forced me into a networking event for a marriage alliance. They didn't give me a choice. The marriage was arranged. I didn't fight it. It would have been pointless. My older brother's reaction was coolly indifferent. It's exactly what you think. The Carter family needs to ally with the Sterlings. You can accept it or you cannot accept it, but you will do it. It's your own fault for not working hard enough to secure the family inheritance. He said it so casually, but in that moment, my heart sank into despair. That night, I sat alone until dawn. I've never been one to take a loss lying down, and I had one advantage over everyone else: patience. Perhaps because I knew from a young age that I would never be the Carter heir. My brother was 5 years older and had a steady, calculating nature. I could never compete, so I had to hide my restless heart. Using my family's resources, I began to plot how to swallow the Sterling family whole. To others, it might have seemed like an ant trying to swallow an elephant. But the reality was, the Carters and the Sterlings had always been rivals beneath a veneer of civility. There were many levers to pull, especially after the Sterlings lost their most capable heir. Grace was talented, but she lacked experience. My brother feared I would try to usurp him, but this time, he would help me. Carter Industries stood to gain enormously, and he would have a free attack dog. So, I was willing to play the fool. The next morning, I had a long talk with my brother. It went very well. Brother, I'm not content with my situation. I want the Sterling family. He just chuckled, then patiently advised me, you're too weak right now. And your position as the husband in this alliance means the Sterlings will never trust you. Even Grace won't trust you. If you want their company, they can't be united internally. You need to at least fuel Grace's ambition. The Carter family will be your strongest backer. You should know what to do. I nodded, and we discussed the details. In the years that followed, Grace and I were like polite strangers. No matter how far she went, I tolerated it. Through my relentless efforts, Grace's ambition finally became uncontrollable. After she became the sole heir, I continued to play the role of the loyal, cuckolded husband. Even a previous boy toy, just like Ethan, had caused a scene in front of me. I didn't say a word, and I treated Grace with the same gentle demeanor, until that man was found, drowned in the river. From then on, Grace forbade her young assistants from ever appearing before me. I began my own plan, silently infiltrating Sterling Corporation. While she was out having her fun, oblivious, she would quickly grow tired of her boy toys. Until she met Ethan Cole. According to my assistant's investigation, they had been together for nearly 6 months. I didn't care what she did on the outside, but she was not to bring it to my doorstep. A warning should have been enough. Now he had to go, and the Sterling dynasty had to fall. Grace dragged a stiff-legged Ethan back to her mansion, her face dark. "Grace, slow down, my legs still hurt," he whined. But this time, Grace didn't coddle him. She slapped him hard across the face. "Didn't I tell you not to go near him? Did you think my words were just for show?" Ethan was, of course, guilty. Grace had explained the situation to him. Sterling Corp and Carter Industries had a partnership. They couldn't just turn on each other. He had made his move thinking he could secure his position, but he never expected the woman who was so gentle a day ago to be so terrifying now. But then, those who make a living as a third party are nothing if not adaptable. Ethan dropped to his knees with a thud. Grace, I was wrong. I just couldn't stand the thought of our child calling another man dad. That's why I did something stupid. Grace wasn't buying it. Women raised in powerful families are not easily fooled. What exactly did you say to him? Alex Carter is not a man who angers easily. Don't say I didn't warn you. People who cross him don't end well. Now Ethan was truly scared. I just said, if he didn't divorce you, he'd have to raise our child for the rest of his life. But he was so cruel, he threatened me. He said the only thing that made me better than a dog was that I could speak. The words were barely out of his mouth before another dozen slaps landed on his face. Then came Grace's cold, merciless words. Alex Carter was right. You need to know your place. This child belongs to the Sterling family, and it will have the Sterling name. Did you really think you could control everything just because you can knock a woman up? The only reason I've kept you around this long is because you're handsome and you listen. But your intelligence. I'm seriously reconsidering whether I should even have this child. Ethan was stunned. He thought a woman willing to bear his child must love him to the core. How could this be happening? The situation had spiraled beyond the comprehension of his limited mind. He crawled forward on his knees. Grace, I can't live without you. I love you. Before he could finish, several more heavy slaps struck his face. How much is love worth? I like to have fun, and I would never have a child with Alex Carter. But my child is a Sterling. This child is not yours. Now Ethan finally understood. He was just a sperm donor, a fun distraction. Love and affection were worthless in the battles of the elite. Grace, I know I was wrong. I'll do whatever you say from now on. Please don't be angry. You're pregnant. Don't let this stress you out. Hearing this, Grace's anger subsided. She was just like me, ambitious. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been so easily manipulated by me. As for why she wouldn't have a child with me, besides her free-spirited nature, it was because she didn't want to be tied to the Carter family's war machine. Not when I wasn't the Carter heir. That's just how it is. If you have no power, even the dogs look down on you. Grace sat on the sofa, closing her eyes and enjoying Ethan's service. Don't ever show your face to Alex Carter again. Be a good boy, and as long as this child exists, I'll make sure you have more money than you can ever spend. Otherwise, I won't be bothered to look for you, whether you end up in the river or in a block of cement. Ethan didn't dare say another word, just nodded eagerly. Sitting in my office, I listened intently to my assistant's report. 3 years ago, I already knew how the Sterling family viewed this marriage. I knew Grace and I were just pawns. She just made her move a little earlier. I was supposed to be the patient predator, waiting in the wings. Her plan was simple: get rid of her brother, and the Sterling family would be hers. My willingness to be a cuckold was the best-case scenario for her. As for when I started my own plan, that was 3 years ago, when I overheard a conversation between Grace's father and her brother. Make sure Grace keeps a tight leash on Alex Carter. He could be a useful piece later. If we play our cards right, we might even be able to swallow the Carter family. Grace's brother had laughed confidently. Don't worry, father. Alex Carter won't escape my grasp. After this project is over, I'll approach the Zhao and Wong families and find an opportunity to move against the Carters together. Once Carter Industries is struggling, I'll have the Carters transfer a portion of their shares to Alex. Then, those shares will be in Grace's control, and the Carters will no longer be a threat. Because I knew this in advance, my brother was prepared. He skillfully defused that crisis, and the relationship between our two families became nothing more than a thin veneer of civility. I also registered an offshore company. Using information from the Carter network, it grew quickly. I had my people bribe numerous mid-level employees at Sterling Corporation. With my insider knowledge and the backing of Carter Industries, many of their employees were soon collecting 2 paychecks. I even set up a dedicated department just to analyze Sterling Corp's every move. This department was incredibly successful, snatching away many of Sterling Corp's contracts. My offshore company caused Sterling Corp to mysteriously lose a significant amount of business. While it wasn't enough to cripple them, It made Carter Industries a lot of money, and my own company grew stronger. It still wasn't big enough to go head-to-head with Sterling Corp, but with Carter's support, the ant could indeed swallow the elephant. After Grace had calmed down, she rushed to find me. The moment she saw me, she let out a sigh of relief. In her plan, I was a crucial piece, and not just for wearing the horns. She planned to provoke me, or rather, provoke Carter Industries into attacking Sterling Corp, so she could profit from the chaos. She believed that if I turned on her now, it would be disastrous for me. What she didn't know was that I had seen through it all. This time, her so-called scheme would be the final curtain for Sterling Corporation. I sat on the sofa, coldly watching Grace sit across from me. A rare trace of guilt flickered on her face. "Alex, I know the baby situation is difficult for you, but I want to have this child. What kind of compensation do you need?" I looked at her, my voice frigid. "What, do I look like the kind of man who's happy to be a stepfather? Don't forget our agreement. We play our own games, but we don't bring new players into the world." She was taken aback, but forced herself to remain calm. "Alex, that's not what I meant. You can have a child too. Publicly, they'll each take our last names. Are you satisfied?" Her eyes were filled with calculation. Yes, she had planned it all. She knew I wouldn't easily give up everything I had. I would surely bite off a huge chunk for myself to maximize my own benefit. But that's what she wanted to see. She didn't just want the Sterling family. She wanted the Carter family too. And I was her best pawn. She was certain of it, because without her help, I could never become the heir to Carter Industries. Too bad for her. My target was never the Carters. I looked at her with scorn. "Let's get a divorce. We'll file the papers tomorrow." She shot up from her seat, glaring at me. "Alex Carter, don't be a fool. You can't divorce a pregnant woman, and I won't be getting an amniocentesis. If you want Carter Industries, you'll do as I say." I stared at her, my voice devoid of any warmth. "The divorce is tomorrow. Don't forget, I have plenty of proof that this child isn't mine. And Carter Industries will cancel its partnership with Sterling." Of course, I wasn't actually going to get a divorce, but I wasn't going to miss out on the profits either. To turn down money that was being handed to me would be an insult to myself. Grace's tone softened. "Alex, we had an agreement. Why are you backing out now?" I slowly stood up, my eyes locked on hers. "Grace, don't forget, I never wanted your dogs parading in front of me. And you announced to your family that the child was mine. What if I don't want to accept that? My preparations were complete. All I needed was an opportunity she was about to hand-deliver to me. She would not give up on Carter Industries. As expected, she relented. "What do you want?" I opened my briefcase and handed her an agreement. "The new project your company just secured. You won't refuse, will you?" She laughed at herself, a bitter, helpless sound, and signed her name. "Alex Carter, you really know how to pick your moments. You win." Looking at her signature, I couldn't tell if I felt sad or happy. If my own love life was destined to be a tragedy, then let the storm rage even harder. After signing the agreement, Grace left. She gave me a meaningful look before she walked out the door. I just smiled and said nothing. I had been patient for 3 years. I could wait a little longer. There was no way I was going to be around to meet that bastard child. The insults I had endured over the years would be returned in full, with interest. I picked up my phone and sent a message to my assistant. Soon, the news of the project's no-cost transfer caused a massive stir. With a push from Carter Industries, rumors of Sterling Corp's poor financial health exploded. The project transfer seemed to confirm it. Grace reportedly flew into a rage, turning her office into a disaster zone. Eventually, under pressure, she was forced to release a statement about their financial situation. Sterling Corp had a hidden loss of $3 billion, a loss that was not disclosed in their annual financial report. When the banks downgraded Sterling Corp's credit rating, everything began to collapse. "Alex, this was all you're doing, wasn't it?" Across from me in my office, Grace stared at me, her eyes burning. She wasn't a fool. In fact, she was very smart. From the moment things started spiraling out of control, she had sensed a hidden hand guiding it all, someone who knew her intimately. She just didn't know how I had done it. I shook my head and poured her a cup of tea. "If I said it wasn't me, would you believe it?" She shook her head, her expression certain. "You were planning this all along, weren't you? But what you always wanted wasn't Carter Industries. It was Sterling Corporation. Am I right? This woman was sharp. Since she already knew, I saw no reason to continue the act. 3 years as the devoted husband. 1 year as the ultimate doormat. The performance was exhausting. Yes, it was me, or rather us, I said, admitting Carter Industries' involvement. From the very beginning, all I ever wanted was Sterling Corporation. Hearing the truth, Grace bit her lip hard. The situation was dire. Sterling Corp was on the brink of ruin. Over the past year, fueled by Grace's ambition, the company had expanded rapidly. On the surface, it looked prosperous, but in reality, it was bloated with bad assets. The expansion had ignored the mismatch between their new ventures and their existing capital, technology, and management capabilities. This had left Sterling Corp's financial foundation in a high-risk state. Now, the only one who could save them was Carter Industries. If Carter's hid the damaging evidence, allowed Grace's PR team to work their magic, and injected a large sum of capital, the crisis could be averted. I knew this, and Grace knew this. Alex, I can get rid of the baby. I'll sell 10% of Sterling Corp's shares to Carter Industries. In exchange, you have to help me. From now on, Sterling Corp will be Carter Industries' strongest ally, and I will be your most loyal wife. We can have our own children. As for lovers, that's all up to you. Grace's face was adorned with a seductive smile as she spoke, but I found it repulsive. Grace, are you dreaming? Isn't it a better outcome for Sterling Corp to be directly absorbed by Carter's? A wife? Do you think I would trust a woman who would even harm her own brother enough to sleep next to her every night? As the words left my mouth, the color drained from Grace's face. Realizing that begging me was useless, she stood up, dazed, and walked out the door. Under the relentless assault from Carter Industries, Sterling Corp was stretched to its limit. When Sterling's stock price fell below its IPO price, the Carter family began buying up shares with full force. In just 1 month, Sterling Corp was completely swallowed. The takeover was so smooth, not only because of the numerous Carter moles within Sterling Corp, but also because Grace had completely given up resistance, trying instead to quickly transfer her assets. When the acquisition was complete, I sat face to face with my brother. "What do you want to do next?" my brother asked slowly, his eyes fixed on the clouds outside the window. I knew that if my answer was wrong, or if I didn't make my intentions perfectly clear, I would be the next Sterling family. I chuckled and took a file out of my bag, handing it to him. "Brother, this is 30% of Sterling Corp's shares. I think, as brothers, we don't need to let business get in the way of family." I paused, seeing no displeasure on his face, and continued. "The old Sterling Corp will become the new Carter Industries. Brother, you wouldn't object to me being the chairman, would you?" Looking at the share transfer agreement, my brother smiled with satisfaction. "Very good. From now on, keep things clean." The next time I saw Grace was a month later. She had taken her entire family and the $1 billion from selling her assets and fled overseas. The day they moved into their newly purchased villa, something felt very, very wrong. When they woke up, they were tied to the door of a ship's cabin. The whole family was there, neat and tidy. Grace's parents and Ethan Cole, not one was missing. I noticed Grace's belly was beginning to show. I chuckled softly and looked at the group, still not fully awake, then closed my eyes to rest. We were in international waters. They had no record of leaving the country. In other words, they were now officially missing persons. The Sterling family, on the other hand, was not as calm as I was, especially Ethan. The moment he woke up, he started begging for his life. "Mr. Carter, I was wrong. It was all Grace. That bitch forced me to do it. I was just a tool. Please, let me go." If the bodyguards hadn't tied him up so tightly, he would probably be on the floor, kowtowing. I despised spineless, self-important fools like him the most. Did he really think he had a chance of survival? Where were we? International waters. If he made it back alive, I would be the one in trouble. I gave a bodyguard a look. A few quick slaps, and Ethan's face was swollen. These bodyguards were old acquaintances of Ethan's. This was the 3rd time they'd had to discipline him. Now Ethan didn't dare to beg anymore. The rest of the Sterling family also fell silent. Finally, Grace was pushed forward. "Alex, Sterling Corp is yours now. Aren't you satisfied?" I'm a stray dog now. I'll never appear before you again. If you need that divorce certificate, I'll sign it. Please let us go. I'll agree to any condition, anything." As she spoke, Grace's head, held high for 3 years, finally bowed. She struggled to her knees and began to kowtow, her forehead quickly turning bloody. A mocking smile played on my lips. I waved my hand. "Grace, you overestimate yourself. Once you disappear, I'll naturally be a free man." I pointed to the ship's railing. "Choose one." The Sterling family realized what I intended to do, and they began to struggle even more violently. "Alex Carter, this is a crime. You can't do this. Good son-in-law, we've never treated you poorly." Seeing their pathetic display, my last bit of patience ran out. I tapped my finger, silencing the chaotic noise. "Your family is truly shameless." My wife, the moment she gained power, couldn't control her desires. 10 assistants in just 1 short year. As for being a good son-in-law, don't make me laugh. In your eyes, I was just a pawn to be used against the Carter family. Now choose quickly. I'm waiting to see what the sharks look like. If you don't choose, you all go in together. My bodyguards were very effective. They began to push the family towards the railing, and they started screaming. "Wait, we'll choose. We'll choose." I turned my mocking gaze to Ethan. As if our minds were connected, he looked at me, his face pale, his eyes pleading. Grace gritted her teeth, hesitating for a long moment before finally speaking. "Choose Ethan Cole." Hearing the predictable answer, Ethan's face turned even whiter. I sneered. "Since you've chosen, don't just stand there and watch." A bodyguard swiftly cut several gashes on Ethan's legs. As the blood dripped into the water, several fins began to slice through the surface. Ignoring Ethan's screams, they threw him into the sea. The sight terrified the Sterling family. A demonic smile spread across my face. "Ladies and gentlemen, your turn." Soon, their figures disappeared from the deck. When the sea was calm again, I poured myself a glass of red wine, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. Using a few pieces of trash to improve the marine food chain. A perfect recycling of waste.